Okay, the stream is live.
Hi, I'm Beth Hildenbrand, and this is All Booked Up. Tonight, our special guest is Mary Woldering. Hi, Mary.
Hi,
We're happy to have you on the show.
and it's nice to be here.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Okay, well, let's see. First of all, I'm probably older than most of the authors that usually get on Facebook. I will be 76 this month, or
Ooh,
a little bit next month. I didn't really get published until I was 65. That was a retirement present to me. And right now I have 13, is it 13? Yeah, 12 books out and about to be 13. Um,
wow.
and so it's just a hobby. It was a hobby. I've written all my life, ever since I could string words together. I wrote stories, I illustrated stories, I told stories to my friends. And then it kind of went straight off into X-Files with the stories. And let's see, I live in Mentor, Ohio. I am married to the same beautiful person for plus 40 years. And let's see, I have 2 grown children, 5 grandchildren, and I don't get to see them very often because one group is in California, the other group is in Florida. So I get about once a year. My son right now, my daughter is my beta reader, sort of, and my son is my editor and cover artist for some of them. And no pets right now. We had quite a few for a while, but we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. You know, we love them, but we can't, just not fitting in our lives at this point. So,
Well, that's great that you keep it in the family like that.
yeah, I'd like to get it outside family and have lots of people reading them, but that's, I guess, what I'm here for. So now I'm trying to think. I guess the genre people want to know about is what is it? What genre is it? I said, well, fantasy plus is what I call it, because it's usually it's kind of a mix. It's fantasy plus a lot of different things, but it always comes back to fantasy. It's like historical fantasy, visionary fantasy, metaphysical fantasy. One story that you read has a little skosh of steampunk in it. A little bit of horror, a lot of paranormal. Almost everything is paranormal in mine. I think there's not very many stories that don't have something like that in it. But not, and they have a little bit of romance, but it's not erotica. It's that's probably one genre I haven't tackled. I mean, I could write it. I just don't take myself seriously when I start, And so that's anything else.
Well, you really run the gamut on genres. You do. I loved your short story, Hattie and the Hoppers.
Yeah, that was
And
my sort of mini steampunk, but it's also a spin-off from the series. If you read far enough into the first book, then you have already met one of the characters.
well, I haven't got there yet then, because I'll
Uh,
tell you what, I loved that book. And I remember saying to you, this is not enough. I need more.
okay. Well,
And
the reason I did the spin-offs is because, okay, they're immortal or semi-immortal. So what are they going to do after the part in Egypt wraps up? So I mean, they need more stories. And so I just kind of had a story that was set in the 1870s. And I had a property which I had just turned over to my son in Tennessee that I'd inherited. And it kind of inspired me to write about that area. And so I did that. It wasn't that hard. History's not hard for me. I just have to get the words right. And I'm a Google fiend. So I'm just always, did they do this in this time period? Did they do this in that time period?
And what
And
inspired you to start it all in Egypt?
oh, okay, there's a complicated one. And here's where it goes straight X-Files. Okay, friends and I in college were kind of exploring the occult. Okay. Now, I hope if there's some readers out here that they're not going to run screaming away, oh, occult. But one of the things we studied was meditation and reincarnation and regressions. So we started doing that, and that's where I got into the history. As we started going back further and further and further. And a friend of mine, my best friend from college, she and I chatted about, and then some other friends, both of who are now gone. Actually, a lot of my friends that I ran with in college weren't as fortunate as either of us, and they've already passed away. Kind of gets that way when you get to be in your 70s, But we used to do this, and I used to take copious notes, and then she would draw because she was also an artist. And she had a thing about the Greek time period. And I didn't know that much about the Greek gods. I really didn't. I really didn't know that much about the gods. I just, and so I went, well, let's see what happens. And so I kept getting the thought when I was writing out some of the different scenes that we would see, because we would, I guess, kind of channel different things. I used to think it was all past lives. I don't think so anymore. I think it's something else. I really don't know what it is, but for some reason, I could see through these little windows and see little vignettes of different scenes. And I started stringing all these things together and finding a story. And so I suddenly had the feeling, there was another little story too in here, a lot of stories. As I said, I ran with a bunch of crazies in college. It's a wonder I actually got through college, because I was more running with crazies than doing college. And they had a haunted house. Now, I've since written a story for that one. There was a bunch of bikers that lived in a haunted house. I should write biker stories, but I can't go there. But I did know a bunch of bikers, and they lived in this place that was supposedly haunted, and there was a ghost in there that allegedly was Egyptian.
Oh,
and his name was Ramakai, and or that's what they said it was. And I kept getting feelings about this thing. It was a kind of a werewolf spirit, And so I'm going, study this, and we would draw pictures and talk to this creature and stuff like that. It's like I could see that, and no, I was not a druggie, so I don't know what the story was. I drank more than I do now, but that wasn't the story either. But I was pretty much cold sober most of the time, but I was definitely mentally on another level, if you know what I'm saying.
mm-hmm.
And so I started talking more and more, and then I suddenly got the feeling I said, I want to write down all these stories into kind of a book form. And so I wrote one first that was in Celtic Britain. I don't think I'm going to do anything with that, because the market is just saturated with Arthurian stuff. And so I wrote another one that was set in the Spanish colonies. Don't think I'll do anything with that, because it deals with kind of it's an MM romance, but it was really negative. So I'm involved.
Oh,
What?
oh,
Who dat?
my window's open and a motorcycle went by.
Oh, okay. So suddenly got the feeling that I should be going back to Egypt. And so and the two of us started drawing some Egyptian pictures. And it ended up that this ghost supposedly was kind of a guide and was telling this story. And then I started getting a story. And so I wrote it all down. I wrote about, 700 pages of story back in the early 80s. I put it on diskettes. And it was called, the first name of the story was Avatar. Guess why I didn't keep that name? So I then went to Children of Stone, and I put it away because I did try to traditionally publish back then. And after about 4 rejections, I had toddlers at that point. I just went, okay, maybe not now, And so I kind of shelved it. And I still kept writing in the background, but not really trying to publish anything. And then somewhere around 2010, my then grown daughter, who is in the Navy at that point, said, "Are you ever going to do those?" Because she remembered hearing the, clean versions of the story as she was growing up. And I said, yeah, maybe. And then I talked to somebody who told me about indie publishing. And because my problem was then I was getting older and I didn't have time to go hunting down an agent. And then I had heard some very negative things about not having control of your own story. And so I said, well, let me try this indie publishing. So 11 years ago, I published the first one. And originally, it was about 2,500 pages. And so I said, this can't be one book. So it ended up being 5 books, and they're each about 500 pages. It's still a bit long for today's tastes. I realize now that maybe it seems like the attention span of the modern reader is more like a 200-page thing, unless they're really into reading. So that seems to be, so then after those books didn't do that well, and I kept trying I couldn't find a decent 5th book, because I wanted to have a book that kind of wrapped it up, didn't disappoint, and everything. And so it was 5 years after I published book 4 that now I'm finally finished with book 5. But in the meantime, I revised the first 2 and made those a little bit tighter and started doing short stories, which was a personal challenge for me, because I have what I used to call diarrhea of the keyboard. I would just get started, I just, and wouldn't know when to end a story. I still don't know. I still don't like writing endings. I don't like writing blurbs either.
Oh, I hate blurbs. Oh, blurbs are the worst.
I know, I've got to write one before I can get this pre-order up. I can't remember if I sent one to my son or not. He was supposed to tell me last night, but he has his life in California and works full-time as a process quality engineer for tech in California, has 2 little guys and a wife and a mother-in-law, and does all kinds of other things. He's basically an interesting thing there is one of the characters that you like in Hetty, he actually kidnapped and kind of developed it. Jerry, and because the one who's Jerry, whose actual name, you'll run into it in Children of Stone in book 1, later on in it, is Jera, is his real name.
Okay.
The character, the werewolf is in there too. That was Metkari. That is Metkari Ramakai. And that was from the character from the haunted house. So I use a lot of these crazy life experiences, And as far as me and spiritualism, I just kind of take all that with a grain of salt now. I'm not a true believer. I don't know what I was experiencing back then. I just know that if I kept at it, I would have been loonier than I am now. So I ground myself, pull away from that some, and discover where the real world was. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I didn't have a religious conversion or anything, although, I am Christian, but it's, let's say, loosely, but I accept lots of other faiths. and love changing mythologies and finding comparisons between different mythologies, and where they came from. So I'm rattling. So let's see if there's any. I don't see anybody here asking questions yet. Did anyone show up yet?
No, we don't have any comments yet, so we'll just keep on going.
No way.
We usually get a lot after the show. Like the next day, there'll be 50 questions to answer. Here is my copy.
Yeah.
Of the
That's got a
first
new
book.
cover now and there's a story behind that cover.
Yes, why don't you tell us the story behind the cover? Because you told me that it's got a new cover now.
Yeah. Okay, and you'll see that on the Facebook. I've changed the new cover, or my son changed it. My son did design that one, and so we had wanted to use the flower of life because that symbol goes through, and he even had this made for me. It's my little flower of life up here.
Oh, yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, so that symbol goes across all the books. There's also another one that I've had since the 70s, which is personal jewelry. And I'm kind of big on stones and personal jewelries. I don't believe they're magical. I believe they have what you put in them, But some people believe they're magical. I'm not one of them. I just believe you can put energy in them and then take it like a bank and then take it out. And this one is my other one, which kind of crawled into my hand.
Ooh, I like that.
It's a black gold stone. I don't know if it shows up, but you can see a rift kind of pattern in the sparkly part.
Yes.
I call that the rift in the stars, because if you go through the rift in the stars, there is knowledge and the gateway to the universe in there. And so then I kind of put it into that I designed the holder for it and had somebody make it when I got back. My friend and I were in Mexico, and we were looking through a bunch of stones because we were more heavily into stones in those days, like good little New Ager types then. And that one crawled into my hand, literally, just kind of like, oh, you will buy me, and so I did. But then that one stayed with me. I think I lost track here. Oh, yeah, the covers. So I wanted that symbol to go across all the books. And I'd had an original cover that was done by Create Space back when they were doing covers when I first published. And it really did not say a thing about what kind of book it was. Originally, it was stating it was kind of sci-fi romance. But people were going on, it's not a romance. It's not exactly sci-fi, but it's got little bits of that in it,
That's the worst. When is trying to find the book cover. I have the hardest time with that, trying to find a cover that suits me, that I feel like it fits my book.
Right. I'm kind of with one now because as soon as I get book 5 done, I've already written the story and it's been published in an anthology, but I added a whole bunch to another one. It's going to come out as a mini book. It's called Secret Grove. And I am especially want to do it now after this big kerfluffle in the Olympics, because it's basically Dionysus in modern times. And helping a young girl overcome childhood bullying. And so it's about that kind of thing. So I wanted that one to come out, but I'm really, here's Nina.
Yes, she's been having raining and thunderstorms. This is why we lost Nina.
I see. Okay.
Well, that makes sense.
So anyway, this book cover, my son finally designed that one for me after he had done a simpler one for book 4. Okay. And because he just kind of did some programs. He's not an artist. He's not a cover designer, but he does do very well with computer designs. And I wanted something with a personal touch, not a pre-made, because a pre-made is not going to tell my reader what it is. So we had that one with the star, because that's actually a scene, the opening scene from the book. You see the thing in the sand. I think you may have gotten that far. And there was a star. But
Yes.
I had so many people asking me if it was a Christmas story.
Huh.
And I'm going, really? I don't think so. And so I went, and then they saw book 2, which had an open sarcophagus. And they said, is that one about Easter? And okay. So I'm going, all right. I need some new designs. And so he's been working hard on those. The books, I have copies of the books here. You just showed this one, that's that one. But it's got a new cover. What we did was we ended up putting kind of a pink web face behind it. And plus the hills were a little more realistic. The second one is Going Forth by Day, which has and the new cover on this one just has that symbol is a lot brighter. And you can actually tell what it is other than a black blob down there.
Yeah, there is a bit of a difference between a Jewish ossuary and Egyptian sarcophagus.
One,
I don't get the Easter, but hey,
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Yeah, really. But hey, if they're if in the Olympic opener they're seeing the Last Supper, oh well, all right, never mind.
Yeah. Okay, here we go.
So, I was out there defending art history, going like, art is more than pretty little pictures of cats and dogs and scenes in the country. It's supposed to be edgy, folks. That was what my degree ended up being in finally when I got out of college. I have a master's in art history. I never did anything with it. It never earned me a dime because you really need a doctorate. And I was burned by the time I had my master's. I just couldn't do it anymore. So I took a break. I know you need to read my books, Nina. I'll get to that at the end because I'm going to tell you about a special. Okay. Now, this one was the one that changed books. This was book 3. Now, everybody loved this cover.
Oh, that is a nice cover.
Problem is, it didn't have the symbol. And this is an Egyptian pyramid. And this is the one book that does not take place in Egypt.
Oh!
It takes place in North Sudan, which they have different pyramids there.
They do.
So I wanted a savanna, and I wanted some trees around, and I wanted the right kind of pyramid. So my son got to work and did that one too. And that's, so you'll see that on the Amazon page. So I'm just saying, if you go on Amazon, the covers are going to look a little different for the series. But this was the first one he ever did. And that was book 4. And he improved that a whole lot too. Now it's like a brilliant purple. Okay. So, now the stories in that, Children of Stone is about one man who is contacted in order to take some stones or some information to the priests in ancient Egypt. And he's been told that there is wisdom in his heart and they will teach him how to unlock it. Okay, so he abandons his family and everybody else and kind of goes out there, but they put him in there is intelligence in a spacecraft. He thought it was a falling star. It's kind of sort of a spacecraft, but as you find out later through the books, it maybe never flew. It just kind of is there, and as the stories go along, you find out more and more about the creatures, what they are. what the real mission was, because they said there was one of their race that was renegade, and they need someone who is intelligent to help turn this creature around and send it home. So he goes off on this adventure rather blindly because for his trouble, they give him a new body, And so he looks awesome now instead of like an aging shepherd, And then he meets 3 women who get involved in his life. And then he gets to Egypt and finds it has a very unfriendly welcome, and realizes that actually 50 years has passed while he was asleep being transformed. He didn't know that before, because how do you tell when things don't really change that much day to day in the ancient world? It's not like now. I think if we fell asleep, let's say back in, I guess the 1970s, and just woke up now, what would be different? A lot.
Yeah.
But, okay. Second book is kind of about the women, Third book gets further into the adventures. Fourth book deals more with the royalty, because what I also do is I combine actual historical figures with my people. So I've done a little bit, so I throw actual historical stuff in there, what is known, how the line of royalty were, and things like that. I don't have an image of the 5th book because I don't have a print copy yet. So, but you can see it. It's a red book. It's a red book cover, and it's called The Lake of Memory, which does wrap up everything. And I use the verse that I found was throughout the story in addition to the symbol, which is, I am a child of earth and starry heaven, but my race is of heaven alone. And that's, it's from Orphism. And so it deals with that. Okay, I need a direction here.
Well, Nina has a question. If you can meet any of your characters, what would you say to them, or what would you ask them?
Oh, okay. What would I ask them? How you doing? It's been a long time. Because in a way, they seem like they're real, Like I already told you about Ramkai. Yeah, this is Ramkai Stairs. It's that book. That's the one about the haunted house.
Oh yeah, I want to read that one. Okay,
and
so
that was kind of a spin-off. That was Ramkai Stairs. I also kind of dabbled with the modern day. My friend who helped me develop this is African-American lady. We're still friends. I actually got to see her last year when I went to a book show in Memphis. And so I kind of did a story that was a cross between her childhood and my childhood, and an awakening of spiritual thought. And so I put that into this one. It's called Anna's Dream of Flying. And it has a dragon in it, So that's her. It's Anna's Dream of Flying. So I always use my real life stuff to, and these books I recommend if people don't really want to make the emotional commitment for a 500-page book. I recommend they start with these, because they're each between 25 and 50 pages.
And I have read some of your short stories, and they're fabulous. So, yes, I totally recommend them.
Okay, this one was Changeling Princess. I actually have this mirror in this attic back here.
Oh.
And I had somebody do the cover from a photograph of that. And this is a retold, has nothing to do with that universe. This is a different universe. This is a retelling of Snow White. Because there is a magic mirror. And I wrote this one for my granddaughter, Estelle, and I dedicated it to her. Estelle has what they call spondydwarfism, which
Aw.
is different than your usual, like achondroplasic with the long back and short legs. This is one where you have a short S curve back. And she's very active. And I put pictures. She said, well, I mean, could you write a story about me? I says, okay, I'll redo Snow White, but there's only going to be one dwarf, and that'll be you. You know. And so
Aw.
she ends up being the governess in this, the governess for Snow White. And she's the one who saves the day, too.
Aw, that's so cool.
And so, and I said that, and plus there's a little part in there about the dwarves can fly. Now, she's a very interesting little girl. She's just now turned 10, but she's all of about 3.5 feet tall. That's probably about all she's going to do, you know. But she's very active, and she does aerial ballet.
Ooh,
Uh-huh.
10's such a great age.
Uh-huh. But she does aerial ballet and silks and stuff like that. And so she's very athletic. She just can't be in any contact sports because of the nature of her spine. She can break her neck or back very easily if she did something like that. So, but this has really helped her muscles. And so I just told her once that, you know, dwarves are very special. They have magic, and maybe they can even fly. And so I put the thing about, well, the dwarf can fly at short distances. That was before she thought of doing aerials. And so she started doing aerials, and I said, oh, look, the dwarf is flying. You know?
Oh, that's fabulous. Oh,
There's another one. I find all kinds of things. It was green cabinet door. This is a YA. And I have this door in my garage. I found this one in my old house. And this one's about, the door is actually a portal. And it deals with Roman guardian spirits. A girl that were presumed to be dolls. So again, more mythology. You read Night Route.
yes, I love that one too.
Yeah. And so that has a little skosh of mythology too. So it kind of talks about well, hey, I don't want to spoil it. You know, if somebody wants to read it, because you find out who the god is later.
Well, I'll tell you, I gave both the books of yours I've read so far 5 stars. They were great books. So yes, if you're looking for a nice afternoon, curl up with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea book, these are terrific. Your short stories. I would recommend them for anyone. If you're looking for a great, last a good while book, hey. Mm-hmm. This is fabulous. I am at the part now where he has woken up and he's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And see, I won't write spoilers. I will always just write, this is a great book. You got to get it.
Okay.
I never put spoilers in my reviews. Oh, Hattie and the Hoppers. Yes.
Hattie and the Hoppers. I took 2 of my characters out of that other universe.
The chicken and the dumplings.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted chicken and dumplings so bad after I read that book. And I still remember that. I will never forget the chicken and dumplings from that book.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have to go make some.
Somebody was saying, how about romance? And I'm going, okay, I'll try. See, I'm always challenging myself, trying to write something I haven't written before. And my stories had romance in them. They had sex, not too explicit, a little more than fade to black, but not a lot of graphic stuff. I just don't think it's necessary. I think people need to use their own imagination. When that's what I can't really do erotica for, but so much of that sounds like an instruction manual.
You can give me sex, but give me a good story with it. Is how I look at it. I like to at least have a good story with it.
They're pretty wild, and as well as book 3, because using different characters. But I used their romantic tendency, shall we say, to add to their character. Okay, so I tried romance, and what do you know? It turned out paranormal. So this was Figment, and that's about a woman running away from a bad romance in the big city, and she gets lost. Typical trope of out of gas on a lonely road, or almost out of gas, and somebody comes along and guides her to the next town, but and she asks about that person, but everybody kind of seems to nod and wink and smile. And then magical things start happening to her. And then she keeps seeing this person. And who is this? I know you guys know who he is. And so she finally does find out a little more who he is. And it ain't normal. So,
I like those.
The last one that I had published was this one, which is The Caretaker. That was actually done as a short story, and I added a little more to it. That was what I call LGBTQ positive, which means I'm not judging or condemning. And it's in there. It's two women, and it's booked as normal. I mean, nobody turns a hair, nobody gives them a noise about it. It's just accepted. But one of them has died. And she says, before she died, she says, you've got to take my ashes home. And so, as you can see, there's a little urn on there. And take my ashes home and put them under the magnolia tree down at my house. But you've got to live there for a little while, too. And so she does this, and then she finds out that she really didn't know who or what she was married to. And so that's when we get into what I call the timeless ones, which is a whole other thing. They're basically vampires, but not.
Okay.
They're what vampire legends came from, because they aren't immortal. They live maybe 700-800 years. I guess that's long enough. They can die, but it's usually on their own terms. They can be killed, but that's not easy, And they can also be resurrected even from ash if everything is there. And so when the urn is taken there, she meets a character called Pappy Ilderton, who is the girl's father, and he's and they sort of become friends. Pappy Ilderton does not look 200 years old. He looks kind of like a young George Clooney. And so he begins to tell her the story of things, and the story proceeds from there. So the one I'm working on now is kind of a pre-story. It's because the head of the clan is always called a Pappy. And so this is Marcus Ilderton. How did he become Pappy? And so it takes place in the 1930s and deals with the Klan, racism, the rise of Nazism, and everything else in the United States. So anyway.
I'm going to have to read those.
And well, that one's, I don't know. I think that I'm still working on the one's called A Man in the Dark is the prequel. I'm kind of about halfway through writing it right now. The next one that comes out, as I mentioned a little bit, was Secret Grove, which kind of delves into the Greek legends a little bit with Dionysus. I'm not going to give a spoiler and tell how it went from the Egyptian to the Greek, but I've noticed as Egypt went on in the centuries, more countries influenced it, and I think the legends kind of moved up. A lot of the Greek legends are based on some of the Egyptian stuff. Well,
we're running out of time. So you said you had a special to share with us.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to do a countdown for book 1. That's the one that you have. It's ebook only. And it's going
Okay.
to start August 1st. Now, I'm going to be doing every 2 weeks, one of the books will be on special because I really
Okay.
want to get people to start reading them. And then I'm also going to have free downloads of the mini books in between. I'm going to see if that does, because my problem has been I just really haven't had enough readers because, I love to write. I have no idea about marketing, not one. And as I said, I really never even settled on a genre or a target audience. So, and those are things you got to know first, But no, I'm a writer. I'm not a seller. I would like to improve that. So anyway, August 1st, book 1, ebook only, goes to 99 cents. And for a couple days, then it'll go up to $1.99, and then a couple more days at $2.99 until it gets back up to its regular $4.99 price. I'm also offering, if people show me their receipts, like inbox them to me and show them to me, I can enter them in a drawing. They can pick whatever book they want.
Ooh.
As a print book, except for overseas. Can't do the overseas thing unless they're willing to pay for the shipping, and most aren't, So I would probably send them, any overseas winners, something that wasn't in print yet, but was being, maybe had been published in an anthology that they may not have seen. I don't know. I'd ask first, like, hey, have you read this one? No. Okay, no, here, have it, that kind of thing. So I got about 3 or 4 that are in anthology short story form that I'm eventually going to publish in mini books, but haven't. Okay, now I guess since we're about out of time, I should shut up.
Okay, everybody. We are going to be having Mary back on the show. So we're all going to look forward to that. And Wednesday, Miski Harris will be closing out July for us, 6:45 Wednesday night, the 31st. And I guess that's all. Oh, go buy my book, Where the Tombstones Grow. You'll like it.
And I'm already on chapter 5. It's a good book.
Thank you. You like it. Lots of fun. Just a nice, fun ghost story. Who doesn't like a ghost story? So everybody.
I love them.
Thank you. Have a good night, and we will see you back on Wednesday. Love ya. Thank you, Mary, for coming. And bye-bye.
Bye.
Woo-woo.